Welcome to Pokemon's 6th generation. The 3DS offers a whole new way to view the franchise. In the Kalos region, you'll find new ways to play, travel, and battle. This is Pokémon X and Y. Bonjour, folks. I'm Livvvid. Developed by Game Freak and released globally for the 3DS in 2013, Pokémon X and Y was the introduction into Pokemon's 6th generation. This would be the first global release for the main series Pokemon games. No more getting the ROM months before the game released and bumbling your way through Japanese or janky language patches to experience them before they'd come out in your country. In today's video, I'll be going back and playing through Pokémon X and Y. I still have both of my original copies from back in 2013 when they originally released. I started in a new game on X, which is the footage you'll see for this video, and recorded on my modified 3DS. There will be spoilers for the main stories and post-game, so you've been warned. If you end up enjoying the video and would like to see more, please like, comment, and subscribe. I love making content, and that is a free way to help me out if you enjoy it. I also have a free Patreon and channel memberships if you'd like to further support my channel. And finally, a pronunciation trigger warning. Lots of names in these games were inspired by French names and words. I will pronounce many of them wrong. I normally start off my videos with personal anecdotes and biases about where I was in life when certain games came out and if I've played them before. It's a nice way to document my own life, but also I notice it made people in the comments do the same thing, remembering where they were and what they were up to when these games were released. The issue for this video is, I truly have no memories of these games on release day. I don't remember going to pick them up or what I was doing in life at the time. Nothing. All I remember is that my first impressions of these games were that I liked them but did not love them. While controversial for some, Pokemon's 5th generation, Black and White, and their sequels are some of my favorite games in the series. To me, they are the pinnacle of that series. It was always going to be hard to top that. In X and Y, there are 72 new Pokemon added to the franchise, bringing the total amount of Pokemon at the time of their release to 721. But 72 Pokemon were the fewest added to the series of any generation. Meanwhile, the generation just before this saw Black and White adding 156 new Pokemon, the highest added in the series at the time of recording. Now this can be taken a few different ways. Gen 5 actually didn't sell very well, so maybe Game Freak figured let's put more time into the look and feel of a game rather than a robust new roster. I don't think sales are indicative of an IP's quality myself. Remember, the Fast and Furious movies were making billions of dollars and I wouldn't exactly describe those as some of the greatest films ever made. Either way, I just think it's disappointing going from the most Pokemon added in the series to the fewest. What was impressive was the graphics. The new 3DS console obviously had an emphasis on 3D capabilities. I guess one memory I do have is getting a 3DS to play Ocarina of Time 3D. Ocarina of Time was one of my favorite games of all time, and that kind of thing is low-hanging fruit for me. So of course I got a 3DS and Ocarina of Time and proceeded to use the 3D function of the 3DS for about 3 seconds. The issue is I have horrible motion sickness, and apparently that extended to the 3DS and 3D features as well. So I never really used them much. But that's fine for Pokemon X and Y because they rarely used it either. It's really inconsistent and pretty much only used during battles and a few other instances. Now as far as the graphical 3D, these were the first Pokemon games to represent the games in fully polygonal 3D models for people in Pokemon. Although the previous DS games did have some 3D aspects, the sprites and other parts of the games were still in a 2D style. I do like how the game is presented in X and Y. Even today, I think the graphics hold up well, especially when it comes to the models for the Pokemon during battles. There is a charm and even respect I have for the sprites that will never go away, but if I have to have it this way, I think they look good. The new region we play in is called the Kalos region. The first 4th generation Pokemon games had regions based in Japan. The 5th generation was the first one based outside of Japan in the United States of America. The 6th generation was based in France. Vineyards far as the eye can see. Medieval castles to keep the English out. Cafes. Revolutions. French people. Fashion models. Revolutions. The striking Eiffel Tower. Iconic art. World Cups. And of course, revolutions. The Kalos region definitely upholds many of those very French inspirations. Okay, maybe not so much the revolution part, but that was a worthwhile bit. As you start a new game, you get to decide what your character is going to look like. The one not chosen will become one of your friends and your rival. You can choose their skin tone and also customize their clothing. Player customization was something I had wanted in Pokemon games for years prior to this. There is a wide variety of hats, shirts, pants, shoes, and other accessories you can grab throughout the game. All of your changes will also be reflected in the cutscenes and everything. I know that seems obvious for today's standards, but that seemed pretty cool back then. Our journey begins in Vonneyville Town, a small town we have recently moved to in the Kalos region. We are of course living with our mother with no father in sight. Why? Because it's a Pokemon game. We have a new group of local friends who are eager to start a journey with us. Shauna, Serena, Tierno, and Trevor. Although not in a party with you in a typical RPG sense, they do somewhat follow along with you during the journey and will frequently show up to give you things, show you stuff, or just meet up for story moments. Professor Sycamore has gifted our group of friends some Pokemon for a mutually beneficial arrangement. We get a Pokemon and we help him with his research. This is where we get to meet the new starters. Chespin, Fennekin, and Froakie. I like all of their initial forms, but as they evolve, I end up only liking Greninja. It's a really cool ninja frog, how can you not like it? But Chestnut is weird to me. I don't like its elongated limbs. I feel like if they were shorter, I'd like it. And Delphox, I don't like it, and I don't really have a good reason for that. I don't know, I just came off of Generation 5 where people don't like those designs even though I do. It's all subjective, I suppose. Chestnut and Delphox just aren't my cup of tea. While I normally try to choose things I haven't used much in my replays of these games, I just have to play with Froakie. I love him. The second member of my team was Talonflame. This may be my favorite regional bird in the entire series. It's flying in fire type, which is already cool. I love its design, but most of all, it learns Brave Bird and has one of my favorite cutscene moves ever. Ooh, man, that fires me up every time. I love it. Next up was Florges. I hadn't used it before, but more importantly, it's a fairy type, an all new type to the series. It's super effective against Dragon type, which was long overdue for a nerf. But at the same time, Fairy type is weak to Poison and Steel, giving those underutilized types more value. A bunch of new Fairy type Pokemon were added, like Sylveon, a new Evolution, Dedenne, a Pikachu clone, Carbink, and Klefki, a keychain. I know I just said it like that, but I actually like it. I also like Trubbish too, so I guess I'm just the guy that likes Pokemon based on inanimate objects. There would also be Pokemon who were not fairy types that were made into fairy types. A few examples and their evolutions are Clefairy, Jigglypuff, Togepi, Ralts, and Mawile. I like fairy types. I think dragon types are jerks, and I've long feared them ever since Generation 1 when Lance used to terrify me with them. So I'm glad this happened. I like the new fairy type additions, and I think the retroactive changes to older Pokemon make sense. Next up was Malamar. I had never used it, and it's absolutely badass. Having Dark and Psychic typing, it also evolves via holding the console upside down, which is certainly a unique way to evolve something. Hey, why not? If you're going to have motion controls, use them. Aegislash, Ghost and Steel type, and another Pokemon I had never used. It also has a really cool ability where it switches from blade form and shield form. I love the sound design when it changes too. Here, just listen to this. Ah, I love it. You can hear how sharp the sword is. My last Pokemon was Lucario. It was the only non-Gen 6 Pokemon on my team, and I wanted to use it for a very specific reason. I needed something on my team that could mega evolve. Woo! I love Mega Evolutions. Introduced in these games, Mega Evolutions are a type of temporary evolution for one of your Pokemon during battle. An eligible Pokemon holding a Mega Stone will evolve into an even more badass version of themselves. Venusaur, Blastoise, 2 Charizard Megas because it's Charizard I guess, Alakazam, Gengar, Gyarados, Scizor, and many, many more. I love these designs. I don't mean to get ahead of myself, but I think this is one of the best gimmicks for battling in the entire series from a casual perspective. I'm not a competitive battler, so I can't and I won't speak on how this affected that scene. But feel free to comment below if you do have knowledge of that scene and you'd like to share about it. I am genuinely interested in learning about that era. Mega Evolutions make me feel like I have a team captain. You can only have one Pokemon on your team that can Mega Evolve during a battle. It'll have an increase in stats and may even adjust its typing, totally changing how the trajectory of a fight may go. I know Gigantamax and Terraforms do a similar thing in regards to stats and typing changes, but Megas just looked cooler in my opinion. Sure, they aren't the size of skyscrapers, but I don't really need that type of thing. With my team assembled, it's time for the journey. What X and Y do really well is its visual representations. Before replaying these games, the images in my head of the gameplay was a little bit of the mega evolutions and also some of the striking areas these games have to offer. Many of the towns have a typical small French village feel, and you may even think some of the buildings and homes start to look a bit repetitive, but even those villages usually have a castle or a palace. Then you leave those towns and you'll encounter the glittering cave, lit up by luminous moss, a nice beach area where you can see the waves splashing on the sands. Route 14 is in a murky marsh, and the contrast this dark and brown forest has to the lush green areas of the game make it stand out a lot. There's even a desert where the power plants are. And soon after that, you're in the snowy peaks. I think Game Freak is aware that some of the places they base their games off of may only have one type of topography, but they get creative with how to utilize different areas they base their games off of. To get around to those various areas though, we're going to need transportation. There are traditional methods of movement from previous generations. You can walk, run, ride a bike, and even use fly. But in Kalos, we got some super cool roller skates. By using the circle pad on the 3DS, you'll hop on your skates. It's faster than running, and you can even add some juice by tapping forward. All around Kalos are various rails you can grind your skates on. You can even learn several tricks that are just for show. I never got into rollerblading growing up, although that 90s movie called Brink definitely made me want to for a few days. I remember watching this movie a lot with my grandma, she liked it too. I appreciate that they give you all the older forms of transportation while also giving you a new one. With all these various speeds and modes of transportation, one of them will probably end up being the one you favor. And I still ended up running most places on foot and used the skates for long stretches. It was actually the bike that I used least in this game. But there is one more form of transportation, riding on the backs of Pokemon. There is a Rhyhorn back at your house, and you'll be able to ride a different one later in game. Then there's a Mamoswine you can ride to plow through snow. I think Gen 6 was a guinea pig for the early phases of testing out a feature they would later use in Generation 7. That is, using Pokemon as true beasts of burden and removing the process of needing HMs for progression and taking up a move slot. And speaking of HMs, yes, they're still around. Certainly not as annoying as previous entries, it'll still require adding a Pokemon to your team from the PC to progress if you don't want to take a move slot away just for the move. Soon after you get your first badge, you'll get an experience share. That's pretty early in the game for it. I know there's differing opinions on it and how it's utilized in the series, but I think I've changed my opinion on it. I used to say you shouldn't get it until later, because it would make swapping out and training other Pokemon a bit redundant. But as I played more, I realized that I still needed to periodically swap lead Pokemon out to train up Pokemon whose level had fallen behind. That's because the lead Pokemon would always take half, with the remaining half being split up with the other eligible Pokemon on your team. And getting the early experience share made it a lot easier to add multiple new Pokemon to your team and just continue playing as normal because they'd eventually level up. Horde encounters were a new type of encounter where you'd see 5 Pokemon at once. These Horde encounters would give out a lot of XP, EVs, and would essentially roll 5 times for a shiny, making those hunts much easier. The most efficient way to battle them is being faster than the rest and using an AoE move like Earthquake so you can feint them all in one shot. But beware, if you're encountering something with an ability that notifies you upon encounter, you'll be sitting there for a long time, because you have to sit there and wait for each pop-up of an ability trigger. O-Powers are a temporary passive feature you can turn on with various effects. Hatching, bargain, prize money, and even battle boosts like attack and defense power. You find this guy in pink clothes, and he'll hand them out, and they can be upgraded over time with usage. Super training is a feature that makes EV training much easier and engaging. You battle this big blow-up balloon Pokemon with soccer goals on them, and try to get the balls to go into the goals to increase your score. You unlock various different games and choose the stat you'll train in. Back when this first came out, I thought, finally, an easy way to EV train. And it was. But I will say, having gone back and EV trained in Generation 3 for my channel, I'll say it was much easier than I used to think it was. I thought training one Pokemon would take weeks. But with training items, and if you're lucky enough to have the Pokerest like I did, it really doesn't take that long at all. Anyway, Super Training was still an easier and more user-friendly way to EV train. Because I don't even do competitive battling, and this method got me into EV training. The crown jewel of the Kalos region is Lumiose City. It's a sprawling metropolis inspired by Paris, France. It has the Prism Tower, cafes, art museums, hotels, the Battle Institute, a train station, market alleys with tons of shops, and back alleys. It's also where Professor Sycamore's lab is. You and the gang meet him here at his lab and he wants to battle you. He uses 3 starter Pokemon from Kanto: Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. Upon beating him, he'll gift you any one that you choose. While I took Bulbasaur, I chose not to use it. If you know anything about me, you know I love Gen 1. But you get to Sycamore's lab soon after the first gym. I just got my starter, it feels weird getting another one. I think they did this because they wanted to give you an early Pokemon that was eligible to Mega Evolve later on in game. Lumiose has got plenty to do, but not until later. At this point of the game, it should have been called Blackout City. That's because a significant portion of the city is apparently shut down due to a blackout. You want to go here? Nope, blackout. How about here? Nope, blackout. The most annoying part of this is it'll let you somewhat go to the next area. A black screen will come up to load it, and after that you're met by a worker that says, nope, turn around. Come on, how about some traffic cones or something to block the scene transition at the very least? And even later in game, when you return to Lumiose, it's still pretty annoying to navigate. I didn't have any issues with traveling or the camera of this game unless I was in this city. Sometimes the camera, and therefore the movement, can't decide where it wants to be, and it'll start jerking you around. You'll sometimes need to stop and tiptoe a little bit to get the camera to get into a position where you can travel in peace. So yeah, I don't hate the concept of the city, but I must be honest, it's miserable traveling through it in X and Y. And then getting there so early in game just to be told you can't really see most of it sucks too. Game Freak kind of backed themselves into a corner here because they wanted you to be able to go to Sycamore's lab to get the Kanto starters. But you were perfectly capable of getting your first batch of starters from him back in the outskirts of town. And I think they should have done the same thing with the Kanto starters. Sycamore could have easily met you in a different town or even told you guys not to go to Lumiose due to the blackout. This would gradually build the anticipation and excitement for that fabled city we had all heard about, and they could have rerouted the game circumventing Lumiose until after the blackout. So instead of your second time being a return to Lumiose, they could have made it the first time you get there and had the entire city to explore. It may be the new visual medium of these games, but I think the gym designs are great in X and Y. Santaloon Gym is a sprawling spiderweb to match the bug type theme. Not too difficult to navigate, but it looks cool. It's led by Viola, a professional photographer and gym leader specializing in bug type. The fight is pretty cool because the gym battles have unique backdrops. When I did this battle, I only had Froakie and Fletchling. While Fletchling did have Peck, it wasn't good enough to take out her Vivillon, and Froakie had to come in clutch with just barely any remaining HP. The gap from the first gym to the second gym may be one of the longest gaps in the series. During this gap is where you'll go through the gardens of Route 4, Lumiose City, Camphor Town that has the Chabonneau Castle, and then the Perfume Palace. I think the Perfume Palace is inspired by Versailles, a real palace in France. The Battle Chateau is on Route 7 after you wake up Snorlax. It's a battle facility where you fight NPCs, and as you win more and more matches, you increase your nobility rank. Eventually you'll get to Silage City, a coastal city that has a second gym leader. I think visually this is my favorite gym. It's modeled after an indoor rock climbing facility with a really nice waterfall in the background. I like the theme and the colors contrasting with the brown rocks and the blue waterfall. And it's appropriate for the gym since it's led by a rock-type gym leader, Grant. He uses the new fossil Pokemon, Amora and Tyrant. I love both of these things, but especially Tyrant. I mean, come on, it evolves into Tyrantrum, a freaking T-Rex. I'm a huge Jurassic Park and dinosaur fan, so I love this thing. You actually get the option to have one of these two fossil Pokemon, but I had used Tyrantrum a few times before this playthrough, so I resisted that urge. Unfortunately for Grant, my Frogadier was just too much frog for him with my water type attacks, and he went down super quick. The third gym leader is in Chaleur City, home to the Tower of Mastery. Whoa. This is where you're going to meet the gym leader Karina and her grandfather. They explain the process of Mega Evolution and offer a single Mega Ring essential for Mega Evolution to connect a trainer with an eligible Pokemon to Mega Evolve. Most of your friends decline, but you and your rival decide to battle over it. Obviously they were no match for us, but before Karina will give it to you, you have to beat her back at the gym. The Shallower Gym is all about extreme rollerblading. You circle around it, finding different trainers to battle, each win unlocking more and more of the rail you'll need to grind in order to get to Karina. She is a fighting type gym leader. The MVP for this fight was Fletchinder. Its flying type moves were too much for her to handle. After defeating her at the gym, you have to battle her again at the top of the Tower of Mastery. She gifts you a Lucario and you battle mano-a-mano with Megas. It's a pretty cool fight and I decided to hang on to this Lucario to be my Mega Evolving Pokemon. The Core Marine City Gym is led by Ramos, the Grass type gym leader. And I had a Talonflame by this point. Both its fire attacks and flying attacks mauled Ramos. After this gym battle, you go to the desert to restore power, and voila! Power is restored to Lumiose City, which means we can challenge its gym at the Prism Tower itself. This is an electric type gym that has a setup of a game show. You answer a series of questions by picking up which numbered door is the correct answer. At a minimum, you still need to battle one trainer, but if you choose the right door, you advance to the next room without having to battle any of the other trainers on that same floor. The gym is led by Clement. This is where Mega Lucario shined. Its fighting type attacks crushed Magneton. But I also taught it Rock Tomb, which absolutely destroyed Emolga. Livvvid City Gym reminds me a lot of Sabrina's Gym in Gen 1. It's a series of rooms that have different panels in each corner that transport you to the next room. What I like about this gym is each room is pretty interesting to look at. One is a kitchen, the others are living rooms or bedrooms, but the colors are distinct from each other. The gym leader is Valerie and her fairy type Pokemon. She freaks me out, man, look at those empty eyes. Now this fight was a breeze too, and for the most part I was not even using super effective moves. Mega Lucario, just using Bone Rush, destroyed her whole team. She did have a Mawile, which is weak to ground, but the other two Pokemon were simply just too weak on a stat level for my Mega Pokemon. I think they could have had the gym leaders start to have their own Mega Pokemon by this point. This would have checked the player because it was just becoming such a huge gap between my team and the NPC's teams. The Anastar Gym was next. It had another transportation panel gimmick against a cosmic backdrop. Add this to the long list of very aesthetically pleasing areas of the game. Now the puzzle itself, I wasn't sure if it was easy or I just got lucky. It's a bit of a maze with multiple choices of panels to press. I just wandered around aimlessly, but I somehow ended up at the gym leader, Olympia. Being that she has psychic Pokemon, I led with Malamar, who knew dark type attacks that were physical based. Most psychic Pokemon at this point in the series sometimes had good special defense, but rarely did they have good physical defense. Well, Malamar is physical based, so that was just perfect setup for it. The final gym is high up in the freezing Snowbell City. This gym is pretty unique. You shift the different platforms in order to connect them to the bridges giving access to the next area. The gym is led by Ice-type trainer Wulfric. Now this was probably the toughest gym battle for me. Although I had plenty of answers for his ice types like Lucario's fighting type attacks and Talonflame's fire type attacks, his Pokemon just had a lot of bulk. I was hitting him with super effective attacks, but his Pokemon could just take multiple of them. His Avalugg even took out my Talonflame, so Mega Lucario had to come in and finish up the job. Once Wulfric is defeated, that means I've collected all the gym badges. Overall, I really like the designs of these gyms, especially Celeste City with its rock climbing theme. But I think the battle gameplay between NPCs and the gym leaders was really easy. With the experience share, I never really needed to grind wild Pokemon, which is fine to be honest. I actually do not mind grinding in RPGs, but if I can also just battle some trainers naturally and get XP, that's fine too. And look, I've been playing these games for a long time, and even though I consider my knowledge of battling casual, I'm still set up more for success than the average player. But I always try to offer a solution if I have a problem with the game, like when I mentioned Lumiose City rerouting. Since you're given a Mega Evolution around the time you battle Karina, what if instead of battling her at the top of the Tower of Mastery with her Mega Lucario, she does that during her gym fight? This would give her a powerful team captain for the fight against the player. Ramos could have had a Mega Venusaur, although this would have been a little bit awkward since the player may also have a Venusaur. But Mega Venusaur is only one of 2 Grass-type Mega Evolutions in these games, and I'm trying to make a point. At the Electric Gym with Clement, he could have had a Mega Manectric or Ampharos. Then there's Valerie and a Mega Mawile. She already has a Mawile on her team. Olympia and Mega Alakazam. Wulfric and Mega Abomasnow, which he already has on his team. I know you may be thinking that Mega Rings themselves are supposed to be very rare and unique items, which is why the player had to battle for one in the first place. But I figure that statement could be true, and the gym leaders are trusted and powerful enough to have them as well, since Karina already has one. I think this would have gone a long way to make the fights a bit more challenging, but also more memorable at the same time. And furthermore, this is the game's main gimmick, bigger than any other gimmick in the previous games. Many of the Mega Evolutions aren't even seen during normal gameplay, and won't be able to be seen until the player finds the stones and has the available Pokemon ready. So I think it would have been a great opportunity to showcase them in gym battles. The story of X and Y revolves around the flamboyant team player. They will start appearing around the Glittering Cave and on Route 10 looking at the mysterious rock formations. At first, their proclamations and motivations are confusing because they're talking about preserving beauty or destroying ugly things to make way for beautiful things. Sometimes they mean people, sometimes they mean Pokemon, it's kind of interchangeable. The group is led by Lysander, a tall guy with a wacky haircut and an outfit that looks just like Team Flare's. I know that makes sense given his association, but throughout the story he's actually not known to the world as Team Flare's leader. This is despite his look and ominous talking points about destroying things and preserving beauty. Even Professor Sycamore and him seem to be friends at first. It appears even he thought he wasn't obvious enough because later on in the story, he has to finally announce himself to the world via the Holocaster, a device he invented which is widely used by the player and others in the Kalos region. The story does have tweaks depending on which game you're playing, but really it's not a drastically different experience or anything. It mainly revolves around which box legendary Pokemon is used later on in the story for Team Flare's dark ambitions. Xerneas is the legendary fairy-type Pokemon and looks like a really majestic stag. It's known to preserve and even create life by making lush forests at will. Its signature move is a stat boosting move called Geomancy, which is absurdly good. It raises its special attack, special defense, and speed. It does this over 2 turns, but believe me, it's worth it if it can survive a few hits. Yveltal is a dark flying type legendary Pokemon known pretty much for the inverse of Xerneas. It actually drains or extracts life from living things to power itself up. Its signature move is Oblivion Ring. I really like both of these legendaries, and I think aesthetically Yveltal is my favorite out of the two. But having used Xerneas in my recent playthrough, I actually ended up really liking its fairy typing. Lysander is trying to use these legendary Pokemon to power up an ultimate ancient weapon. Those mysterious ruins back on Route 10 were actually a clue to where that weapon was. But what is this weapon and where did it come from? Deep in Lysander's lab is a mysterious tall man being held captive by Team Flare. Lysander introduces him as a man who shares the same name of a previous king of Kalos. This is AZ. He will explain what happened over 3,000 years ago regarding this ultimate weapon. A long time ago, a man and his beloved Pokemon were just enjoying life. Then a war began. That man and his Pokemon fought together. And after years of war, his Pokemon friend died. That man built a great machine that was so powerful it could give life. And it worked. He revived his friend back to life. But that man was still bitter and angry about the war. Despite his friend being back, he turned the revival machine into a weapon of destruction to get revenge on his war enemies. But his friend knew what he had done. What that man had to sacrifice to return it to life, and what he had turned that machine into. The revived friend left the man. And for 3,000 years, that man has wandered the land looking for his friend, filled with regret, knowing unending pain. AZ is that king an ancient man spoken about. He's re-emerged recently to warn Team Flare and the region against using this ancient weapon. And luckily, everybody listened to his warning, and Team Flare gave up. Everyone went home, and the day was saved. Whew, that was easy. Okay, so nobody heeded AZ's warning, and Team Flare went ahead with activating the weapon. The next phase of the story involves battling through Team Flare's facility in order to stop them using the weapon. You battle a gauntlet of Team Flare members to include admins and Lysander himself. Deep in the chamber, you encounter your game's exclusive legendary Pokemon, which is being used to power the great weapon. This battle is a great set piece. In my case, the Xerneas battle was illuminated by radiant rainbow colors. I know I've said it a few times about the battles in the game, but I really enjoy these unique battle scenes for both gym battles and story battles. Maybe it should be expected in a 3D game, but I've been replaying the series in chronological order for the channel, so I think that helps me appreciate the new visual leap we've taken in Generation 6. Once a legendary Pokemon is caught, it can be added to your team immediately. And just in time, because Lysander comes back for revenge looking like Doc Ock or something. The rematch goes relatively quick, but he does have the new capability to Mega Evolve his Gyarados. Mega Gyarados is extremely badass and gains dark typing, and unfortunately that means Xerneas just moonblasted it into oblivion. In the fallout of the battle, Lysander turns the weapon on itself to try to take everybody out, but fortunately everyone makes it out and the weapon is destroyed. After everything is settled, AZ will talk to the player and further express his regret about disappointing his revived Pokemon friend. For 3,000 years, he's slowly become a shell of a man. Well damn, I feel bad for him. I wonder if his friend is even still out there, and if it'll ever forgive AZ. For now, the story takes a break. The story up to this point is fine. I do like how mature Pokemon has gotten. It's outright talking about full-blown wars involving Pokemon, the death of said Pokemon, and Lysander trying to use that ancient weapon all over again. Team Flare and Lysander were pretty over the top, and it certainly wasn't any mystery who the big bad was throughout the game. I still laugh that Lysander had to announce his evilness to the world because nobody was picking up on it apparently. With the story mostly wrapped up and the badges collected, it's time for the Elite Four. Before getting there though, you have a Victory Road sequence. It's filled with your typical ace trainers and later on a rival battle. Now this Victory Road did feel challenging. I lost all but 2 Pokemon trying to get to the end of Victory Road, so that was a really nice change of pace. Once you get to the end of Victory Road, you are greeted by the massive Elite Four building, modeled after a cathedral and a castle. It kind of looks like both. Just like in Gen 5, you get to actually choose which Elite Four members you want to face in any order you want. I started off with Malva in her Blazing Chamber. She's obviously a Fire-type trainer. It was pretty light work for my Greninja who just surfed his way to a swift victory. Inside the Flood Chamber was my next opponent, Seabold, a Water-type trainer. There was not much to report here either because Malamar knew Thunderbolt, and despite not favoring special attack, it still overwhelmed Seabold. The next fight was against the Knightly Wickstrom, the Steel-type trainer in the Ironworks chamber. Okay, this was my favorite room by far. It's so cool the way the swords turn in on you like that. He also ended up being the toughest fight for me in a really enjoyable battle. I had to use pretty much everything on my team to get this win. His final Pokemon was Scizor, and my Talonflame's fire attacks would be 4 times super effective against it. The final Elite Four member was Drosna, the Dragon-type trainer. Although Fairy types are a thing now, it was my Greninja and its Ice Beam who helped me win this fight. I don't know, I just wanted to keep it classic for old time's sake, I suppose. The champion of the Kalos region is Diantha. Mega Lucario was my savior for this fight because she was honestly getting the better of me here. But he fell to her Mega Gardevoir. Finally, another Mega Evolution from an opponent. It was actually my Aegislash who came in to save the day for me with its powerful Shadow Claw attack. With Diantha defeated, I am champion of the Kalos region. A few days later, the people of Kalos would gather in Lumiose to celebrate the victory over Team Flare. Then, an old friend shows up. AZ challenges us to a battle in front of the cheerful masses. He wants to know what a real trainer is. The battle is by no means challenging, but it's not really meant to be. He has a Torkoal, Golurk, and a Sigilyph. After the battle with you, he finally feels free. Free from the sorrow of having used the weapon so long ago. I'm not crying, you guys are crying. Come on, this is a great scene. I think the story of this game is okay, but right here at the end, it really sticks to landing. I am a sucker for redemption stories, and characters accepting responsibility for their actions and seeking forgiveness. But the way the Floette finally returns to him once he has become the man it once knew is a great redemption story. A big 9-foot king dropping to his knees in front of 1,000 people just because of how grateful he is to have his friend back is a powerful scene. After the credits roll, there is a postgame, but I'll warn you, it's not that extensive. I know I sound like a broken record, but when you contrast this postgame to Generation 5, it's actually pretty shocking how much of a step back this was. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say the postgame of Black and White felt nearly as full of content as the main game. Maybe that's not a realistic bar to pass, I don't know. As soon as you get home, your friend Shauna offers you a trade. You can trade her anything from your party or box and she'll give you a Kalos starter you don't already have. I'm not complaining about this, but this is just really random. Usually, these types of trades or gifts involve getting a starter from a different region. After the postgame, I also sent up our boy Kentamago, the shiny Executor. He is my channel's mascot for trading that I caught all the way back in Fire Red. Transferring in this era still involves Pokebank, a precursor to Pokemon Home. As of the time of recording for this video, Pokebank still works, but I am predicting that it will end in the next year or so. I hope I'm wrong, but I have a feeling I'm right. Kilude City can now be accessed through the metro system. This town is basically where they crammed most of the post-game features from the other games and a few new ones all in one place. The Battle Maison is the battle facility in these games and offers you typical battle options. You can even do multi-battles with friends you've met throughout the game, like here when I use Shauna. The Friend Safari is a new feature that lets you encounter unique Pokemon via friend codes. You can run into Pokemon who have 2 max IVs at a minimum, a hidden ability if you have all 3 of the friend slots filled, and a much higher chance at getting a shiny. Shiny rates in Generation 6 were already reduced by half, going from 1 in 8,192 to 1,496. The Friend Safari gives you even more shiny rolls, and this stacks with a shiny charm, potentially giving you up to 7 rolls out of 4,096. And if that doesn't seem like much, trust me, that's a huge advantage if you're shiny hunting. It wouldn't be a post-game without some legendaries to catch. And how about the original post-game legendary? Mewtwo is found in the Unknown Dungeon near the Pokemon Village. You can also get its 2 Megastones for evolving it into its X and Y versions. Both of these forms are awesome, but for very different reasons. I happen to prefer the X version because it makes Mewtwo into a physical attacker, which is just great. For more Kanto love, you can also catch a legendary bird Pokemon from that region, but it's only one, based on your starter. In my case, it was Moltres. It acts as a roaming Pokemon, but works a little bit different than what you may be used to. It will immediately run upon encountering it initially, so no opportunity to set up catching right away. In fact, you must encounter it 11 times before it shows up at the cave at Azure Bay. 11 times. What is this madness? What kind of sick developer does this? If X and Y were the only Pokemon games back then, I guess you'd have to just suck it up. But back then, I had all the previous games and I could just transfer up the legendary bird Pokemon from them, so it was much easier for me. Deep in the Terminus Cave is Zygarde, a really cool looking dragon and ground type legendary. This is only its 50% form, but at the time of this game's release, this was the only known form. Later on in Generation 7, it would be given a 10% form and a complete form, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself on that. Anyone who knows this era of Pokemon likely knows that there was always rumors about a Pokémon Z version planned, which would have heavily leaned on a story involving Zygarde. And it's just a guess, but I think the 10% and complete forms likely would have shown up in that potential game instead of the Alola games. According to online theories, Pokemon Z was likely cancelled to have more development on Pokemon Sun and Moon to be in line with Pokemon's 20th anniversary. But I found a quote from the source himself. Series director at the time, Junichi Masuda, says in response to Pokemon Z rumors, "We never really planned to make a third version. We always want to do things that surprise fans. For example, after Black and White, people thought Pokemon Gray was going to come next, but instead we made Black and White 2. And the same with X and Y. Instead, we made Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. People thought Pokemon Z would come next. But taking advantage of the fact it's the 20th anniversary, we decided to deliver another surprise with Sun and Moon. I think given how they added Zygarde elements to Sun and Moon, there was likely at least early stages for concepts of Z version. But it was likely scrapped very early on and the concepts carried over to Sun and Moon. The final bit of story-related content will be very important for any potential return to the Kalos region. Looker is a recurring character to the series. He's part of the International Police and leans more on the comedic side. Looker usually relies on the player character's investigative skills rather than his own, but he sure as hell shows up right in time to swipe the credit. Looker has set up a Looker Bureau in Lumiose City to uncover a strange string of crimes. You help him in solving these crimes throughout the city, but as a reminder, I hate traveling around the city, so the story itself will be cool, but most of the gameplay was honestly miserable if I'm being honest. You will eventually start encountering a mysterious person known as Essentia, who wears a high-tech suit capable of letting them appear as anyone in the city, and making them nearly impossible to track down. As you help him solve the mysteries, you meet a young orphan girl named Emma. Emma knows the city like the back of her hand, and with her trusty Pokemon friend Esper, who she is named Mimi, she helps Looker so much that he actually takes her in, and Mimi, into the Looker Bureau to stay. As time goes on, there is more and more crimes being committed throughout the city. Stolen Pokeballs, damaged art, and many of the times the crime starts happening, Emma isn't at the Bureau. Emma started to feel like a financial burden on Looker and sought a job at Lysander Cafe. Yes, the Team Flare hideout that was definitely revealed much earlier in game, and has somehow not been raided by the authorities yet and is still an active cafe with a sinister lab. It's deep in the Team Flare hideout that it's revealed that Zerosik, a Team Flare scientist, has survived the fallout of Team Flare losing to the player and continued his work. He created a highly powerful tool called the Expansion Suit. It enhances physical powers, hacks into Pokeballs, disguises the wearer, and can control the user of the suit against their will. It turns out Emma was Essentia. Because she was working at the totally not a Team Flare hideout cafe, she was used as a test subject to conduct crimes all over the city using the Expansion Suit. Emma is unconscious when the suit is active, so she had no idea she was even being controlled when it was happening. She was also not that great of a Pokemon trainer herself because she preferred to play with Pokemon rather than battle with them. So you were really battling with Zerosik when you battled Essentia. When you confront Zerosik, he forces Essentia to battle you over and over again. It's pretty sad because you can tell the suit is pushing Emma beyond her physical limits. Eventually you do overcome Zerosik and he will surrender. But Emma is very forgiving, and she actually ended up liking Zerosik because she only knew him outside of the suit. And apparently he wasn't that bad to her outside of it. He will see the error of his ways, and with the crime solved in Lumiose, Looker decides he needs to move on. He bestows the title of lead detective on Emma and tells her to take over the Looker Bureau in the city. And Zerosik will even leave her with the powerful suit to aid her in running the Bureau. But its remote capabilities have apparently been disabled, so no worries about her being taken over again. She is reluctant to have Looker leave at first and wants to go with him, and that's understandable. She's kind of losing all of her important adult friends as an orphan. Zerosik is likely going to be arrested, Looker is leaving to fight other crime, but she still got her Esper and now she has a nice place to stay. She's also the perfect person to look after the city. This is her city after all. She knows the city, its humans, and Pokemon inhabitants like the back of her hand. I think Emma is the perfect person to look after this city of light. The Pokemon X and Y experience is okay. I think its strengths are Mega Evolutions and its visual presentation. I've loved Megas ever since these games came out, and as a gimmick, I really wish they would have just continued with this version of it, rather than new gimmicks nearly every generation after it. For the first fully 3D main series games, I also think they did a great job making many visually impressive and iconic moments to the game. The wide range of biomes and color palette changes were nice. The backdrop for important battles made them stand out a lot. The cracks started to appear at Lumiose City for me, which is supposed to be the crown jewel of the region and very important for later events in the game. They send you there way too early when they seemingly don't want you to explore any of it. And then when you return there later, it suffers from constant scene transitions, a clunky camera, and even frame rate drops. Overall, the gameplay difficulty also seemed like a breeze. I really do think giving the gym leaders and Elite Four members prior to the champion battle some megas would have gone a long way to aid in making it a little bit more challenging. But this would also make sense for showing off more of the megas in the game that introduced them. There are so many mega evolutions you will not see naturally unless you go out and find the stones and have the Pokemon to mega evolve yourself. The postgame felt very thin, and maybe I'm being a spoiled brat. Having just left Generation 5 with its massive postgame, I also think the bar was set super high. Maybe that's clouding my assessment. These games certainly aren't bad though. If this was somebody's first introduction to the series, I actually think this makes for a great entry. Folks, that's all I've got for Pokemon X and Y. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. This video was brought to you by my YouTube channel members and patrons. My Patreon is entirely free to everyone, so check that out for early content or to see what I'm doing for the channel. But if you become a paid member on Patreon or here on YouTube, you help me do this full time, and I'll shout you out in videos. Thank you to my YouTube channel members, Quinn, Chris Redbeard, Brewham, and Eugenia, and to my patrons, Shio, Lyra, Eon Kane, Martane, Smudge, Brooks, Jonathan C., J-Rat, Andrew PH, and new member, Mimoxa. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.